You know how sometimes you just want to grasp something really deep, something that might, like, shift how you see everything. But, well, who has time for dense philosophy books all week?
Right, exactly. Finding that core understanding efficiently.
Yeah. So that's what we're doing today. We're tackling this really big question. How does all this stuff around us, the variety, the constant change, how does it all come from what some perspectives say is just, one single reality?
It's a fundamental puzzle, isn't it? If it's all one, why does it look like countless different things happening?
Mm-hmm. And the sources you shared, they dig into this from non-dual viewpoints, which offer some, well, pretty fascinating angles.
They really do. It's about looking beyond the surface appearances.
So our mission really is to unpack these complex ideas, to try and pull out the key insights about reality, consciousness, our own experience.
And get to the heart of what they're suggesting.
Exactly. And to help us get our heads around it, we're going to lean on an analogy that comes up a lot in these sources.
Yeah.
The dream analogy.
Ah, yes. The dream. It's a surprisingly powerful tool for this.
Okay, so let's dive right into that. How does the dream analogy work here?
Well, think about when you're dreaming. You could be, say, wandering through a vivid London street market in your dream.
Okay, yeah. Feels totally real.
Totally real. The stalls, the people, the noise, even the sense of you being there, walking around. But where is all that actually happening?
Well, it's all in my mind, right? Even if I'm actually asleep in my bed in, say, New York.
Precisely. The entire detailed environment, the apparent other people, and your dream self, they're all projections, manifestations within your own consciousness.
And when you're in the dream, you usually don't know that. You're just there.
Yeah.
Experiencing it through your dream self's eyes.
That's the crucial part. You're absorbed. You experience it from a localized perspective, the dream self, and you've sort of temporarily forgotten the waking reality of you lying in bed.
So the dream seems completely external and separate.
Right. Then you wake up, and instantly you recognize, oh, that London market, that dream me. It wasn't separate. It all arose within my mind.
Okay, I see how that works for a personal dream. So how do these non-dual views scale that idea up? Like, to the whole cosmos? That seems like a huge leap.
It is a leap, but the principle is extended. The idea is that infinite formless consciousness, the ultimate ground of all being containing all potential, is, in a sense, imagining or dreaming the entire universe within itself.
Whoa, okay, so the universe is a kind of cosmic dream.
Sort of. And crucially, to experience this vast potential, consciousness seemingly localizes itself. It appears as countless finite points of view, or what we experience as individual minds.
So, like all of us, every person, every creature is one of these localized points within the big dream.
That's the analogy, yes. From the perspective of these apparent finite minds, the ongoing activity of infinite consciousness is perceived as an external, objective world.
Because our viewpoint is limited, like the dream self's viewpoint was limited to just the market.
Exactly. We see forms, objects, other beings, all seemingly separate because our aperture of perception is finite. Now, obviously, a key difference from your personal dream is the sheer multiplicity of these viewpoints in the cosmic version.
Right. It's not just one dreamer.
But the underlying idea, according to this view, is the same. No truly separate, independent minds or selves are actually formed. They are appearances within the one consciousness, just like your dream self wasn't truly independent.
That's a lot to take in, because it feels so real, this sense of being a separate me, looking out at a separate world. Why does it feel so convincing if it's an appearance?
Well, that leads to the next point. This apparent division between a subject and an object, the world, seems necessary for experience itself to even happen.
What do you mean necessary?
Think about basic perception. Can your eye see itself directly?
No, I'd need a mirror.
Right, because the eye can't simultaneously be the seer and the thing seen. All our conventional knowledge, everything we experience through our senses and mind, relies on this fundamental distinction. There's a subject, the knower or perceiver, and an object, the known or perceived.
Okay, yeah, knower and known, that seems basic.
So the idea here is that for the infinite potential within consciousness to become an actual knowable experience, consciousness adopts the structure. It seemingly splits itself into the knower, the finite mind, the apparent eye, and the known, the objective world, the other.
So the division allows for perception.
Precisely. It's only from the vantage point of an apparent subject that an objective experience becomes possible. Without that apparent split, consciousness is just pure potential, perhaps, but not an experience of something.
Okay, so we have infinite consciousness, And this apparent split into subject and object to allow for experience. What's the actual connection, the interface between them? How does this potential become, well, this gestures vaguely?
That interface, that process is often termed manifestation. Think of it as the dynamic interaction point. It's where and how infinite consciousness engages with what appears as the finite mind.
So manifestation is like the unfolding.
Yes, it's how the potential within being unfolds as existence, as perceived reality. The formless appears as form through that subject-object relationship we just discussed.
So when I see a tree or hear a sound, that's manifestation happening.
That's the idea, but here's a really critical point linking back to the dream or maybe like a movie on the screen.
Okay.
This perspective emphasizes that no new separate reality is actually being created during manifestation. The images on the movie screen don't become a reality independent of the screen itself, right?
No, they're just light on the screen.
And the dream market wasn't a place separate from your mind. Similarly, the universe we perceive isn't considered something fundamentally other than consciousness. It's seen as the activity of consciousness, the play of consciousness, viewed through that lens of apparent separation.
So the term creation might be a bit off then, if nothing truly new and separate is made.
Exactly. If creation implies bringing something into existence that's distinct from its source, then yeah, it doesn't quite capture this view. It's more like a transformation and appearance, a modulation of what's already there.
Like waves appearing on the ocean. The waves aren't separate from the water.
That's a great analogy. The potential was always in the ocean. The waves are just how it expresses itself under certain conditions. Nothing fundamentally new was added.
Got it. That's a subtle shift. Now, you mentioned earlier that the idea nothing exists needs qualifying. What does existence mean in this context, and why qualify it?
Good question. The word existence itself, if you look at its roots, ex-sister in Latin means something like to stand out from.
To stand out?
Yeah. When we say something exists, we usually mean we perceive it as distinct, as standing out from its background or source, like a character on the movie screen seems to stand out.
But its reality depends entirely on the screen.
Precisely. So from this non-dual viewpoint, the objects, the people, the world, they appear to stand out, to have independent existence. But they're seen as appearances within the field of consciousness, borrowing their seeming reality from that underlying awareness.
They don't have their own inherent standalone reality.
That's the idea. So the qualification isn't saying your experience isn't real or the tree isn't there. It's about understanding the nature of its reality not as a fundamentally separate thing, but as an expression of the one consciousness.
So it's not denying the world, but seeing its deeper nature, seeing the ocean and the wave.
Exactly. It's intended to, perhaps, enrich our perception, not devalue it, to see the unity in the diversity.
This really changes how you might think about things like, well, incarnation and reincarnation. Those ideas usually involve a separate soul, right?
They absolutely do, conventionally. You have the idea of an individual soul or essence entering a body at birth incarnation and potentially moving to another body after death reincarnation.
But if our fundamental nature is this single, infinite, formless consciousness,
then the idea of that consciousness being born into or confined within a body starts to look questionable, doesn't it?
yeah, how can something infinite be confined in something finite?
Remember the analogy of space. Infinite space isn't created by building a room. The space is already everywhere. The walls just create a temporary apparent boundary within that space.
Okay.
Similarly, consciousness in this view is ever present, unbounded. It doesn't come into a body at birth or leave at death. It's the context in which the body appears and disappears.
So that feeling of being in my body, limited to it,
Yeah.
where does that come from?
It's attributed to the focusing effect of our perceiving faculties, our senses and thoughts. They create a localized perspective. It's very much like the dream self feeling localized within the dream body and the dream world.
Back to the dream self. It felt real, but it wasn't a separate entity that entered the dream.
Precisely. So from this non-dual standpoint, there isn't really a carnation consciousness becoming flesh. In a limiting sense, therefore, there's no incarnation of a separate entity hopping between bodies.
So the focus shifts completely.
It shifts from tracking the supposed journey of a separate soul through time to recognizing the timeless, ever-present nature of awareness itself, which is considered unborn and undying. Recognizing the screen, not just the movie playing on it.
Okay. Wow. So if consciousness isn't truly confined, what does create this persistent feeling of being a finite mind, a specific me with boundaries.
The suggestion is that perception itself draws the line. Think of infinite consciousness, again, like a limitless white canvas.
Okay.
If you draw a circle on it, you haven't added anything, but you've created an apparent boundary, defining an inside and an outside on the canvas.
Right, just with a line.
In our experience, the lines that form the boundary of the finite mind are our faculties of perception. The 5 senses processing sights, sounds, textures, tastes, smells, and also the thinking mind, which names, categorizes, judges, remembers, plans.
So my senses and thoughts are drawing this circle.
In essence, yes. Consciousness, operating through these limited faculties, creates the appearance of a localized inside, the sense of a personal self, a finite mind, and a seemingly vast outside the world, perceived through those same senses and thoughts.
And the world I perceive is structured by the limits of those senses and thoughts.
Exactly. The finite mind experiences the rest of infinite consciousness via the filter of its own perceptual tools, interpreting everything based on the nature of those tools.
Which inevitably brings us to time and space. Are they fundamental realities, the stage on which everything happens? Or are they part of this perceived reality?
That's a core question. The non-dual perspective generally suggests they are not the fundamental bedrock. Instead, time and space are seen as arising from how consciousness interacts with itself through the lens of the finite mind.
How so? How does the mind create time and space?
Think of consciousness in its pure state as timeless, eternal, and also spaceless, undivided, just presence.
Okay, hard to imagine, but okay.
When this timeless reality is filtered through the faculty of thinking, which operates sequentially, one thought after another, it appears as a linear progression of moments. That's our experience of time.
So thinking turns timelessness into a timeline.
That's the idea. And when the infinite, undivided nature of consciousness is filtered through perceiving, through senses that distinguish here from there, this object from that object, it appears as extended and differentiated. That's our experience of space.
Perceiving turns undividedness into separate locations and objects.
You could put it that way. So time and space are seen as characteristics of the perception, not necessarily of the underlying reality, which is considered inherently timeless and spaceless.
But our direct experience feels so rooted in time and space. Although, wait, let's think about direct experience. Right now, this moment, now.
Yes, consider now. Does it feel like it has duration? Or does it vanish the instant you try to grasp it?
Yeah, it vanishes. It's always just now. It never seems to actually be past or future in the moment itself.
And have you ever experienced anything outside of now? It feels like one continuous, ever-present now, doesn't it? Even memories are experienced now. Thoughts about the future happen now.
Huh. Yeah. It doesn't feel like a point moving along a line. It just is. Always.
Could that constant now be our direct interface with that timeless dimension? And what about here?
Here. Well, everything I experience is always happening right here, where I am. Even if I travel, the new place just becomes the new here.
Exactly. That sense of here-ness, the locus of awareness, seems constant, doesn't it? Your body moves through what we call space, but the experience itself is always rooted in this immediate here.
So maybe linear time and three-dimensional space are mental or sensory constructs overlaid onto a reality that is fundamentally just here and now.
That's a provocative suggestion these perspectives offer. It challenges our deepest assumptions. You used an analogy before. The contact lens is one, right? To explain how we might mistake the constructs for reality.
Ah, yes. Remind me how that goes again.
Okay, imagine you started wearing, say, yellow-tinted contact lenses years ago, and you completely forgot you put them in.
Oh.
You'd look out at the world, and everything would seem to have a yellowish tint. But you wouldn't think, my lenses are yellow, you'd just assume that's the color the world is.
Right, I'd attribute the tint to the world itself.
So the analogy suggests that thinking, creating our sense of linear time, and perceiving, creating our sense of separate space, are like these contact lenses worn by consciousness.
We've gotten so used to them we don't realize we're wearing them.
Exactly. Consciousness, identified with the view through these filters, mistakenly attributes the qualities of the filter's time and space to reality itself. We think reality is temporal and spatial, rather than seeing time and space as the way we are currently perceiving reality.
And that makes it incredibly hard to talk about, right?
Okay.
Because our language developed within that time-space view.
Precisely. It's a huge challenge. We're using tools shaped by time and space to try and point towards something potentially beyond them. That's why analogies and suggestive pointers are used, trying to evoke a recognition in you, the listener, rather than giving a neat definition.
It really makes you question things, like, Free will. If the me I think I am is more like an appearance or a character in a play, can I have free will?
The free will question. It's a classic paradox in these discussions. If the separate person is, in this view, fundamentally illusory or an appearance, well, a non-existent entity can't really possess free will in an absolute sense, can it?
Logically, no. Like asking if the dream character had free will separate from the dreamer.
Right. However, that feeling of freedom, the desire for freedom, the sense that we make choices, that's incredibly strong and real in our experience.
Undeniably.
So one interpretation is that this deep intuition of freedom isn't wrong, but it's actually pointing to the inherent freedom of the underlying consciousness itself, the dreamer, not the dream character.
So distinguish between the character's actions and the consciousness's nature.
Yes. The apparent person, shaped by all sorts of conditioning, genetics, environment, experiences, might operate largely within cause and effect, somewhat predictably. But the awareness animating that person, the consciousness itself, is considered inherently free, unbound.
So the feeling of freedom I have is like a reflection of that deeper freedom.
That's one way to look at it. So the practical advice often given is, in the everyday world, act as if you have free will. Make choices, take responsibility, engage fully, but hold the understanding that the ultimate source of freedom, and perhaps even the choices themselves, originates from that deeper, boundless awareness.
Interesting. Okay, another point that seems tricky. Awareness, aware of itself. If experience needs a subject and object, how does awareness know itself without splitting?
The idea here is that awareness or consciousness is inherently self-aware, self-knowing. Like the sun. Does the sun need another light to shine on it for it to know it's luminous?
No, its nature is luminosity.
Exactly. Consciousness' very nature is awareness. It knows itself directly, immediately, just by being itself. This fundamental self-knowing doesn't require the subject-object structure that the mind uses for its kind of knowing.
So there's a difference between awareness knowing itself and the mind knowing something.
A crucial difference. The mind, with its subject-object mechanism, acts like a filter. Everything the mind knows objectively, perceptions, thoughts, feelings, the world is known through that filter. It's indirect, interpreted knowledge.
And awareness knowing itself is direct.
Direct, immediate, unfiltered. Consciousness seems to need the finite mind structure, the subject-object split, only when it wants to experience something objective, something seemingly other than itself, like a world, or a thought, or a sensation.
So the mind allows for experience of things.
Yes. Without that apparent localization into a finite mind, consciousness simply is its own boundless, formless being. It knows itself, but there's no world to perceive objectively until it adopts a viewpoint. Think of the actor again. The actor inherently knows who they are, but they experience the specific events of the play through the limited perspective of the character they're playing.
Okay, that clarifies it. So, given all this,
Yeah.
which is quite revolutionary, really,
Yeah.
how does one integrate this understanding? It can't just stay as an intellectual concept, right?
Absolutely not. Integration is key, and it's much deeper than just intellectually agreeing. It's more like absorption transformation.
How does that happen?
It usually involves ongoing engagement, listening to these ideas, perhaps reading related things, but crucially, spending time just pondering them, reflecting quietly, letting the implications sink in, questioning your own assumptions.
Not just accepting it blindly.
Definitely not. Your mind will raise objections based on your current framework. But what about how can that be true if? Exploring those doubts, those resistances, with genuine curiosity is part of the process.
And what does this engagement do?
As you really grapple with it, this understanding can start to act like a dissolving agent almost. It gently begins to loosen the grip of ingrained misconceptions, habitual thought patterns, and especially that deep, often unconscious identification with being just a limited, separate self.
So clear things away.
It helps clear the fog, yes. It's often described as a gradual purification of perception. You might start having little insights, moments where you see through an old belief. The world might start to feel different, less solid perhaps, or maybe more vibrant.
How so?
Its perceived power to define you or dictate your state might lessen as you begin to sense the underlying conscious reality shining through the appearances more clearly. It's like that amnesia we talked about, forgetting your true nature starts to lift.
And what does that feel like internally? And look like externally?
Internally, it often manifests as a growing sense of deep underlying peace, a quiet joy or contentment that isn't dependent on circumstances being good, a feeling of interconnectedness externally. Well, that inner shift naturally tends to express itself as greater understanding, empathy, compassion, and love towards yourself and others, because the sense of fundamental separation starts to dissolve.
So it's not about becoming something new, but recognizing what's already here.
Precisely. The end point isn't acquiring a new state or becoming an enlightened person. It's the simple, profound recognition of the reality that is, and always has been, present. The ever-present awareness that you fundamentally are.
Okay, so wrapping this up. We've really gone on a journey today. We dove into this big question. How does our world of seemingly separate, changing things emerge from a fundamental, unified reality, a single consciousness?
Yeah, using that dream analogy as a central thread to explore how multiplicity can arise from unity, how perspective is key.
And we looked at how the subject-object split seems necessary for any kind of conventional experience, and how manifestation might be the interface.
And importantly, how maybe no truly separate reality is ever created, just consciousness appearing to itself in different ways.
We also touched on how this reframes ideas like existence, incarnation, even free will, pointing always back to this underlying free, self-aware consciousness.
And how our very tools of perception, thinking, and sensing might be the contact lenses that create our experience of time and space, filtering a reality that might be timeless and spaceless.
Which brings us to that final thought, really, for you listening. Just take a moment, right now. Consider your direct, immediate experience of now, and your constant sense of here.
Do they really feel like fleeting points moving through some vast objective grid of time and space? Or do they feel more fundamental, more constant, more primary than any idea of measured time or distance?
What might that immediate, undeniable feeling of here and now suggest about the actual nature of reality and your own fundamental being within it?
It's worth pondering. We really encourage you to sit with that, explore in your own experience, see where it leads.